But I brought the vacuum out to the garage and I plugged it in and I moved some stuff around. I had my mats out in the yard because I sprayed them down and all this, and I vacuumed the interior of my truck. And as soon as I turned it on, the mouse there was like a sound and this dead mouse comes flying out. I'm like, all right. And here's the thing, I can handle anything.
Oh, he was
But
calling me.
smells get
He was calling
So there I
me,
am,
going,
dry
"When are
here."
you coming home?"
Oh, you had to
So-
come and rescue him.
so
It was
Yeah.
funny.
He had to call you to come home to help him.
I could never be a doctor.
Yeah, I had to help him.
Ever.
I had to help.
Well,
He needed
that's
some
like me.
support.
I can see stuff,
It's
My
the smell.
granddaughter, when
Yeah.
she was little, she's left me with her, and she pooped her diaper,
Yeah.
and it was like,
Aiden did that.
oh
He
man.
called me home from school one night.
Well,
Same thing.
I'm sitting there, I'm going, where's grandma? Where's grandma? He's like looking up. It's
Looking out
like,
the window.
and at the time, her dad was delivering pizza.
Uh-huh.
I was gonna call in a pizza and have him deliver it to come. I was like, hey, and while you're here, change your daughter. And, and finally, I had to break down and I had to do it. Oh,
It's bad. He called me home from, I was going to night school, and Aiden had one of those zipper jammies on. He left him in the bathroom with the door closed and waited until I got home. So it was like at least 20 minutes. And he told me it was emergency to come home. Like, it's emergency, leave class now, I need you home. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I get home and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, bathroom. And I'm like, okay. So I
It was a
go in
crime
the
scene.
bathroom. It was a crime scene like Dexter. It was like everywhere. Everywhere. It was so
I
bad.
can relate.
He was proud.
You did a good job.
Yeah.
You were
I was
constipated.
making art.
You're proud.
Then
Yeah,
the
but I can
baby
deal with that stuff. But it's blood that I can't deal with. That makes me go, "Ooh."
Okay. Sadly, we're on.
Okay.
Okay.
We're on 19.
Those poor people listening to
Yeah, what
us.
are
I know, it's like a soap opera. It's our soap
Are
opera.
we starting on 19?
Are we on 19?
We're in 1927.
27.
Well, I'm sure it was a good year. It was the middle of Prohibition. You know?
Before the war.
Yeah. Well, after the war, yeah.
After
Anyway, yeah. Okay, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, thank you for your grace. Be with the folks in Florida and in the Carolinas. Be with the rescuers. Help them to be safe as they try to find people that are trapped. In all things, Father, your will be done. Amen.
Is Patsy okay? Okay, is she fine?
No, Patsy is on a cruise ship. Of course she is.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
a
what a
love
shock, yes.
weekend from, I think, LA, headed to Hawaii and eventually New Zealand.
Yeah, a brief 25-day journey to Auckland.
I believe this is a trip that they have scheduled and rescheduled since April of 2020.
Wow, so it's finally happening.
So, yeah, so it's fine.
It's Hurricane
But
Ian, right?
She and
Yeah.
another lady,
Was great.
Patsy, and another lady named Patty, sent Harry some good comments on last week.
Okay, greetings to Doug and Patty. They're online back in Virginia. And I tested the link that I just sent out to make sure it would work. So, you know, people should be joining us along. Now, last week we went through the destruction of Sodom, always one of my favorite subjects. I sent out a couple of images from the dig I've been on because I got notes of, what's there now? That's the good stuff. In the lower city, there are spots that you can still see some things, like there's a Roman bathhouse from the 4th century AD. That's why it's called Tel El Hammam. It's the ruins of the bathhouse. But up on top in the palace, you run into the mud brick, which is what the buildings were built of, but they had massive foundations. And there's a foundation stone running down the middle. We're still in the palace kitchen because you don't have taboons where you cook bread or warm up stew in the palace. It's adjacent to the palace. It's much like the medieval days, but it was leveled. There are other, if the building was not protected by the hill when the blast occurred, it's gone. You know, kind of, it went with the Schwinn, you know, and it is a massive destruction. We're going to finish up the destruction of Sodom with an eyewitness account from no one less than the patriarch Abraham. And then we'll see the last of Lot. Remember, 2 Peter, this man is called righteous, and his conscience was grieved by what's going on in Sodom. Consider that when we read the scripture tonight. Okay, without any further ado, since we went left last time, we'll go right this time. Chris, how about 19:27 through 29?
And Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. Then he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain. And he saw, and behold, the smoke of the land, which went up like the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overflow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt.
Okay. Hebron is located here, modern Hebron. It's a short walk. Now, here's your scales down here. The modern city is like 8 miles from the edge of the Rift Valley. So Abraham would have had to walk from wherever his tent was pitched, which is probably not downtown. Shepherds don't live downtown. Just saying. But he overlooks, and he's looking into this region to the location of Sodom. And all he sees is a pillar of smoke and dust. That's all that's left. The people are gone. The 5 cities of the plain are gone. And as I said last week, the force of the blast would have pushed salt into their fields. So the fields are gone for 700 years. No one builds a city there again until Byzantine times. That's 1,100 years later. But they don't build it up on top of the hill. They build it down in the flats. Romans had peace. The Bronze Age, you built walls around your towns because somebody is going to come by and try and knock you off, like the 4 kings from Mesopotamia. So it's prudent to have a good wall in that period. The Romans counted on their legions. They used humans as their wall. Different approach. But the reason this is important to me, other than just being me, which can be enough of a reason, is this is an eyewitness account by the patriarch of an event that happened about 1700 BC. And it was important enough for him to notice it. He doesn't know if Lot's gone or not. He tried to bargain with God. You don't know if the bargain worked or not. You know, some days it's good, some days it's bad. But he observes it. It's recorded. It's a story that's passed down to his sons and his sons' sons. This is a big deal. You don't see 5 cities wiped out too often. And they're close enough, and on occasion, okay, spoiler alert, we will visit this spot, Abel Shittim, house in the desert, or when we bring back Jacob's body from Egypt. So remember, we're going back to the same real estate. Tel El is sacred real estate, and get ready for Denise's grimace. There were over 1,800 dolmen there. A dolmen is a pile of rocks. It's three or four rocks with a large flat rock on top. And I nearly caused people to go like this because I'm driving along from Gamla. I go, that's a dolmen. What?
We stop in the middle of the street. We have to go see this.
So,
And it was a pile of rocks.
yeah, it was a pile of rocks, So this is why you should never travel with me when I'm driving. I might be distracted. Okay. But it was a massive dolmen field, and the dolmens all looked down on the central temple, which had been located in the lower city. So it's a ritual site from the Chalcolithic period, fancy word for like 5,000 BC or about, down through the time of the patriarchs. But Abraham looks at the catastrophe. No, that's game for them. He can't do anything. There's nothing there to do it with. It's just smoke. It's coming out of a furnace. What do furnaces smell like when you're smelting metal? Because that's the kind of smell you would have too. The excessive heat and all of the vegetation that's been obliterated, along with the people. Yeah. Oh, they've only found, by the way, they've only found 2 partial skeletons in the palace area, and it was between the main wall, which was blown away, that blew on top of them, and the outer wall of the palace itself. So we'll be interested to see if anything else is found. I think this will be our last season at Tel El Hammam, because the price is going up and the Jordanians want us to do a bunch of things that previously they haven't asked us to do. So, if you have spare change, Steve Collins would accept it. If not, he's still going to go to the dig and he'll pay for it somewhere.
Maybe you guys have showed us, like, is there a guesstimate map that's been made up yet of, hey, here's the gate, here's this house, here's where this house was, or is it so decimated that it's,
Okay. For that information, go to Len Rittmeyer, LenRitmeyer. He's out of Wales, and he has those schematics done. He has the schematics of the gates in the lower city done, which is, as I mentioned last time, a Cretan or Minoan style gate. He is the architect. He does great work.
so you'd say that it's pretty much accurate from what you've seen being there.
From what I've seen physically walking in the gate area, yes.
Very
The
cool.
temple area, yes. Up on the palace, I think he and Steve may have had a beer or two too many when they drew some of it, but it's a guess. They're going to drive a massive shaft down to see what's truly there.
Oh, cool. All right.
So it'll be this is why I'm going very late in the dig, week 6 and 7, so that I get to see what was exposed before you start doing conservation to make sure nobody messes with it. So, yeah.
So when you go there, it's not like a city that just kind of dwindled away. There's evidence of like catastrophic event there. I mean, is it you see
Yes.
something that's like it's
Okay.
catastrophic that would ever happen?
At the standing in the kitchen area, going to the palace, it's a 3-story building, and in between the layers were like wool carpets or wool tapestries or something, and you could put your hand in, and they were just flash burnt, and it's collapsed down. And it isn't a normal. If somebody burns a city, first you conquer the city, then you pillage it, then you burn it down. You take the good stuff out first. The other thing that we've got is the pottery is all churned. Very few whole pieces of pottery, like bigger than that, are found in the kitchen area. I mean, normally kitchen areas are great. You can find massive pithoi, big jars. You can find taboons complete. They're like our hornos here. Same kind of circular cooking thing. You bake your bread, you put a pot on top to warm it to get your stew. I mean, it's same desert environment, similar solutions to the same cooking problems. We've got the outline of a taboon, but it was made out of clay and it's gone. It appears that a blast wave came through, and through everything against the walls in the back and then brought the front walls to the back wall. So it's broken up into very small pieces. There are, the only way you can know what's the difference between a palace and somebody's home. Well, first is a bigger installation, but all of this pottery that goes in front of the nobleman, if you will, is glazed on the inside, glazed and slipped inside and outside. And it's a very unique glaze that is only found at Tel el Amarna. So these people were we do it this way. We're wonderful. And they had their, you cook in a regular pot, you put it into these special vessels to go into the palace. That's how we can identify this is where the food was prepared. It was put into the special pots to be taken into the nobility. There are also some massive storage cysts or chambers or silos. They're called, depending on the era, they change names. But the biggest one we found is 20 feet tall, 8 feet in diameter, and goes down. It's built into the wall against this kitchen area. So you'd have to climb up a ladder, get out whatever you're going to get out of this particular storage area, and then use it. But they had you're thinking about preppers, this king was a prepper. 20 feet by 8 feet in diameter. That's a lot of cubic space. Okay. That's any other questions on silly digging things? Okay. Now, let's get back to Lot. Last scene, Lot was negotiating with the angels, going, hey, I don't want to. Pat and I were talking about it, and she thought, well, maybe he's just so fat he couldn't run that far into the hills.
I was picturing Eli.
Yep.
Who was sitting on a stool and all that at the Shiloh. But I don't know. I just felt the little bit of he's doesn't want to do it maybe because he can't.
Yeah.
He's been sitting at the gate and going up these hills. It's not something. I mean, he's not a young man anymore.
No.
Maybe an impairment of his legs, feet, something.
Yeah. He's also scared. I mean, he has just watched his wife die, his city destroyed, and he thinks everything's been destroyed. I mean, this is kind of like the book of Eli that he's living through. And I'm not sure he's blind and can do it. Okay, Aiden, how about let's do a good 9 verses on incest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lot went up from Zoar and stayed in the mountains, and his 2 daughters with him, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar, and he stayed in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. Then the firstborn said to the younger, our father is old, and there is not a man on earth to come into us after the manner of the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and let us lie with him, that we may preserve our family through our father. So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. On the following day the firstborn said to the younger, behold, I lay last night with my father. Let us make him drink wine tonight also. Then you go in and lie with him, that we may preserve our family through our father. So they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger one rose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot were with child by their father. The firstborn bore a son, and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. As for the younger, she also bore a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the sons of Ammon to this day.
Ben-Ami means son of my people, which is an appetite. Where were these girls raised?
Sodom.
Sodom.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think culture matters? I mean, just what the culture sets as a norm. Now, they've also had this same wonderful father suggested they should go out to the mob that are trying to rape the angels. So, the treatment of women isn't for here, but women were treated as property at this point, certainly in the sodomite culture.
And what's interesting is him being, I don't know, upper social class there in Sodom. He goes into Zoar, which is probably a very small, what you would say, village, backwater, hick,
Yeah.
But he's not there for long because he's afraid. So either they knew where he came from, they didn't care for people from down there, but also he was able to acquire some wine and amongst other things.
Yeah.
So then they head up in the mountains and they have food, they have wine, they have whatever. And so obviously he did some trading or sold some things, bought some things. He had coin. I know he didn't carry wine out of Sodom.
Sodom isn't noted for wine.
Maybe that was a
He's running
necessity.
with his
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, his wife had all the wine. That's what killed him.
Or he had to assume he'd be in the mountains for some time. So whatever money or things he had to trade, he made those trades in Zoar and took off.
Yeah, he's terrified. God did it once. Is he going to do it again? Now, I'm assuming, since we have no contact with Abraham, that he's on the Jordanian side, what I would call the Jordanian side today. The Byzantine monks, those spiritual giants, decided that right here, just south of the Arnon River, which is the line between Moab and going north, is a cave, Lot's Cave. They built a monastery there in caves. This is a volcanic region. Think about like we could go out to the Bandera Ice Cave, lava tubes, and just plain caves. So you can have large spaces in there, but that's the sort of area he would have gone to. He had to be close to water. The Byzantine monks built a massive cistern to collect the rainy season runoff and use that throughout the year. But it doesn't say anything about Lot building a cistern. So I'm guessing, and this is much like Blinken in Robin Hood Men in Tights, I'm guessing it was somewhere around here or around here that he had his cave, because you've got to be able to get to water. I have to agree with Chris. I think he had some means of barter, whether it's gold coin or silver coin or some precious stones, who knows? But he has luxury items. Wine is a luxury item. It is produced over here on the coast because the Egyptians are buying it. But they're not, but you don't produce wine at this time in this area.
So where is Zoar?
Okay, Zoar, I can point to 4 places good authorities have said it is. One actually puts it at the mouth of the Arnon River, which unfortunately, my problem with a low level like that is when the tsunami propagated, you're buried under 150 foot of salt water, probably not the village I'd want to go to. Again, this is purely heresies. I think he probably went up in this area towards Heshbon. It's going up towards what is modern Amman, up towards Mount Nebo. It's Mount Pishka, but Nebo's the town there. And there is an agricultural area up here. I think he went that way, but no one knows for sure. You don't have signs like when you land at our airport, Mayor Carol Keller welcomes you. They didn't have, Mayor Habib welcomes you to Zoar. We don't have that sign. So, and this is about the only mention of it. The next time Zoar shows up is it's down here, the name of a trading center, which is at the Zered River, and Zoar is there during the Israelite times, which are still to come. Abram is the only Israelite right now, and he's not even an Israelite because his grandson is going to be called Israel.
I mean, it's highly unlikely he traveled 50 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're talking 24, 48 hours.
I think less. Yeah. This could have easily occurred 4 hours after they said, well, you got to get out of here. We can't do anything until you leave, but we got a plan for this place,
Well, I'm just glad he didn't pick out his daughters for the wine.
I know.
I feel like
The daughters may
Probably
have
did,
preferred
didn't
that. I don't know.
I do wonder about that.
But he's so terrified, he's not even making contact with Zoar or up on the, if you go up onto the plateau on the eastern side, what is now Madaba, or those kind of, there were towns there at the time. You have the King's Highway there. It's already an agricultural area. But he doesn't even go up there to find husbands for his wives, for his daughters.
Or go back to Abraham. That would,
Yeah.
go back to your family, and then,
Yeah.
you should have some idea where to find him and.
Agreed. I mean, he had other options than living in a cave scared to death.
So he's also in a cave because if a meteor came and exploded in the air, he's underground in
Yep.
a shelter.
Yeah, he wanted to live in a fallout shelter. It only took one bolide to convince him they're nasty.
So when I initially read this, I think of this little cave, and we're going back to primitive man and stuff. But in Israel, we've seen a lot of really nice looking caves.
Oh yeah.
In places, and so is that area you're talking about? Do they have a lot of caves there?
Oh yes, it's a volcanic region, and that's why I compared it to the Bandera ice caves, where you would have lava tubes that would open up, and it's a nice environment, as nice as any of the houses you're going to build out of mud brick. But your point's well taken that this guy is going into his bunker. I'm going to be safe. God can't hurt me here.
He'll drink.
Yeah, I'll just drink myself blind. Good idea. And the daughters come up with a brilliant idea that if Dad's not going to arrange any marriages for us, well, we'll just get him drunk, sleep with him, we'll get pregnant, and we'll continue our family line. That is not a Shemite approach. Lot started out in Ur of the Chaldees, or his father did. So they were polytheists, moved to Haran, came into the land of promise with Abram at that time, heard all of the promises from God, and decided, I'm going to go to Sodom, first bad decision, and work with them. This is a great place for sheep. Secondly, he becomes a judge in Sodom, and now he's making the brilliant decision, the best thing I can do for my wife and myself and my kids is sit around in a cave and drink. This man has spiraled down very drastically.
He just keeps making bad decision after bad decision.
Yeah. I mean, it's like he's sort of a preview of the book of Judges. But he doesn't turn to God, even though God sent angels to talk to him.
And to save him.
I mean, all the provision that God's done, and instead of being, oh, thank you, Lord, it's, what do I do next? It's, I'm going to cower in fear. As Christians, we should not have a spirit of fear. And a lot of us do. A lot of people are afraid of their shadow. And what might happen tomorrow? What'll Putin do? We have no control of that. We have control of our actions and the decisions we make going forward. But out of this union comes the nation of Moab and the nation of Ammon. When you say Ammonites, Ben-Ami, the tribes here are related to the Israelites. I mean, basically, they're going to be fighting second and third cousins for the next 1,200 years. It gets worse when Esau founds Edom, and the sons of Keturah go down here to Saudi Arabia. So it's all from Abraham. It's his fault. And we're still way up here. We're at Abraham, Sarah, Hagar. We got these three. We got to get through all these folks by the end of Genesis. Yes, we got a lot of territory to cover.
Yeah.
Okay, got a question. Could the daughter's desire for children, hopefully sons, be because of inheritance customs? Lot doesn't have much now, but maybe he will later. It could be as simple as that. We only know what we're told in Scripture, Laura, and I think they just wanted to have children because a woman without children had no hope. If they had sons, and as you point out, they would have wanted sons, there is some hope for them in the future. When their father dies, they're on their own pretty much, but their sons will continue to feed them when they're no longer able to feed themselves. There is no Social Security. It's more their Social Security than an inheritance. Lot has lost everything. He used to be prosperous. He's now a penniless drunk in a cave.
Be on eBay.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
But they're not helping. They make the decision to get him to drink.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't say he was drunk and then they seduced him.
Right.
They made the premeditated, intentional decision to give him alcohol and to do that.
yes. That does, for the folks from Vertical, we had a good presentation on wine. I've tried to pull some of the strings on it. And as near as I can tell, the highest percentage of alcohol in wine in this period is about 18%. That'd be 36 proof. So
And
They-
that's
they-
kind of what I was thinking too, but I didn't know anything about the proof or anything.
Yeah.
But because they mention of quite a few times throughout the history that, and then he drank the wine and got drunk. And
Yeah.
then he got the wine and got drunk. So to hear that it wasn't.
yes, I have personal experience with drinking too much wine. You can get drunk on it.
Well, but in Lot's defense, okay, his wife had just died.
Yep.
His other married daughters and sons have all perished.
Yeah.
Basically, it's him and these two daughters that basically have essentially nothing.
The clothes on their back and whatever they were able to get out of, grab out of the safe when they were running out of town.
And everybody is thinking that, okay, well, are you gonna bring this kind of destruction to our town? Get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these girls are thinking that the whole world is demolished.
Right.
And
Yes.
this, from what it sounds like,
Well, if you look out of the cave, that's all you see.
just a smoke.
And once the smoke dissipates, which in that particular valley, because it's below sea level, until a Scirocco comes through and really cleans it out, all you can see is the destruction. That's why I likened it to the Book of Eli movie. You're walking through and there's nothing but destruction.
I'm guessing that maybe Abraham must have assumed that Lot and his family was dead. They were all dead because it doesn't say anything about Abraham seeking Lot out again or Lot's no more. It's
Nothing,
not
yeah.
mentioned anymore. So,
Yeah, I mean, he negotiated it down to 10. There were less than 10. Okay. But this is the last mention we have of Lot in the book of Genesis. And it's the founding of two nations which will be thorns in the side of the children of Israel.
So how many people lived there?
Okay. living in the city, probably upwards of 3,000 to 4,000, but there are villages out on the plain that were controlled by each of the big cities.
Okay.
And in the time when the kings from the east came, those people who worked the farms would have grabbed what they could and got inside the city walls. But remember, the five kings of the valley decided to try and fight them as far south as they could. And they lost the battle. And the kings of the east imposed tribute. They sacked the cities. Didn't destroy them, but they said, "You now owe me, King Bela."
I was just trying to get context. It's like, okay, there's less than 10 people who are good.
Righteous.
Like,
Yeah.
Righteous. Out of how many? Is it out of 1,000 or out of 12,000 or 1,000,000?
Okay, a reasonable rule of thumb is between 150 and 250 people per acre inside the city. And as everything else in archaeology, there's a wide difference between which authority says how many is right. I've seen as low as 80 and I've seen as high as 600. But in Mesopotamia, 600 may have been right. But in this environment, I would guess, and it's just guessing again, maybe 150, 200 people per acre, and multiply that times 80, and you've got a big population, including people outside. But it's all guesswork, as you do not have census reports. And even when you have census reports, you may not understand them. Okay, that's the end of Lot. Hopefully the end of discussion of Sodom, because it ain't there anymore. Okay, let's go to, as Chris called it the last time we went through here, the long con. Okay, chapter 20, 1 through 7, please.
Now Abraham moved on from there into the region of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. For a while he stayed in Gerar.
Yes.
Gerar. And there Abraham said of his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." Then Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, "You are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is a married woman." Now Abimelech had not gone near her. So he said, "Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Did he not say to me, 'She is my sister'? And didn't she also say, 'He is my brother'? I have done this with a clear conscience and clean hands." Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience, and so I have kept you from sinning against me. That is why I did not let you touch her. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and all who belong to you will die." Jeez.
Yeah. Okay. It gets worse. In the next section of scripture, Abraham tries to justify himself. Remember last week, we read about a theophany. God came in human form to talk to Abraham, and he brought two angels with him. They had lunch. And among the things that he promised is, within a year, your wife, Sarah, is going to have the miracle child, Isaac, because she's 98 years old. You're 99 years old. Be a miracle child. Trust me, in a year it'll happen. She's in the tent giggling, at least in her heart and mind. So we're talking about a somewhat mature woman.
Yeah, I was wondering, how would King Abimelech even want to take her in if she's that old?
Yeah, exactly. There are actual doctoral dissertations written on that subject. See, Bible students will cover almost any subject, but as I said at the outset, I'm going with the numbers as written. There, I do have questions. I'm with you. You know, if she was 19 or 29, maybe 99 is pushing it. You know, Abimelech.
Just pushing it, not a solid no.
Yeah, now, Abimelech is a king. Look at how he approaches this. Abraham comes and is living in his tents, eating grass near Gerar. Most of the time, he's moving. Okay, down here in this area is Kadesh Barnea. This is the area of Shur, wilderness of Shur. He's moving back and forth with his flocks and herds, following the grass. Wherever the grass grows, they'll go and eat it. But this area along the coast gets more rainfall than here in the Negev. So he moves towards Gerar. Yes.
So did this meteor strike and destruction of Sodom affect the climate?
Not much.
Okay.
The real famine doesn't come for almost another 50 to 100 years. Again, archaeologists, climatologists have actually taken borings of the Dead Sea, and you can see by the amount of vegetation what type of plant life there is, how low the Dead Sea went. Yes, this was a dry period, but not the worst dry period. The worst dry period comes during the time of Jacob.
I'm trying to think why he wandered quite as far. You know, I mean, it seems like he did not need to leave Hebron and all of that, unless he just sort of wanted to. Like, okay, I need a change of scenery here.
Yeah, he went west. Is the Dead Sea a bad luck area? Lot certainly thought it was. Maybe Abraham did too. I mean, he's just moving. You know, nomadic lifestyle implies moving about every the 10th circle every 8 to 10 days. So you travel.
So then he
much.
shouldn't have been in Gerar long enough
For Abimelech,
to be attracted to his wife.
exactly. But I go back to Chris. This is his con. But God calls him a prophet. And it's the same word that shows up when you're talking about Samuel the prophet, or Saul is among the prophets, the young man learning to be prophets. I mean, it's the same root word. But I'm struck by the fact that God talks to a pagan king. You know, there's no mention here that Abimelech of Gerar is a follower of Yahweh. Nowhere in the text. He's in the area that's heavily influenced by the Egyptians. Why? Because the main road goes up through there. The Via Maris, the Way of the Sea, comes up here. It doesn't branch off until about this area to go up to Megiddo and points east. So it's in a good area. And this king sees a woman that he wants, says, "Who is that?" "That's my sister. She's mine now." There's a certain authoritarianism here, very much like the Pharaoh. He hears she's attractive. I want her. The Charlie Sheen character comes to mind. Hadn't thought of it like that, had you, Bill? You know? Okay. He's bargaining with God. He's apparently in his palace asleep. God says, "Return the man's wife." He goes, she said he's her brother. I've done this with a clear conscience, clean hands. Of course I ordered it in my palace. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You know? But God says, "Yeah, I know you did. That's why I prevented you from touching her." And the rabbis argue whether this is impotency, which is what they used with the Pharaoh, or if all the women of the palace began their periods, whatever period uncleanness that protected Sarah at this point. You know, rabbis will argue about anything. God protected Sarah, and God talks to Abraham like a friend. This is not what you say to a friend. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and all of yours will die. There's an if-then statement here. If you give her back, you're cool. If you don't, you're toast. Any questions? Okay. This is not the God we're used to thinking about, but this is how Yahweh is presented. He is a very forceful God, very direct, especially when talking to non-believers. Yes?
And Abimelech calls him Lord.
Yep.
So
When-
he knows something about it.
Well, if I'm awakened by a voice coming out of nowhere saying, "You're lucky you didn't touch her, fool," that an audible voice that I'm now negotiating with. We're going back and forth in conversation. I would call the disembodied voice Lord. Kind of like Samuel when God first called him. He thought it was his master Eli calling, gets up, runs a bit. But this is the first time Abraham is called a prophet. There are a lot of firsts in the book of Genesis. Okay, any questions on what's going on here? Is the narrative pretty clear? All right, how about 8 through 13? And please note the lame excuses that Abraham uses. It's almost embarrassing.
Okay, early the next morning, Abimelech summoned all his officials, and when he told them all that had happened, they were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham in and said, "What have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you have brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should not be done." And Abimelech asked Abraham, "What was your reason for doing this?" Abraham replied, "I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife. And when God had me wander from my father's household, I said to her, this is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother."
This is a weird story.
It's
Weird.
Well, technically, he didn't lie.
He didn't.
Yeah.
He did.
He did not
He's
lie.
saying, he's like, well, technically, she is my sister.
Yeah, my
Just
father
not
had.
from my mother.
Yeah. She's only my.
Official.
She's only my half sister. That makes it okay, right?
Here's a
It sounds like, anybody listen to that would say this is kind of dumb.
here's a thought. So the last time this happened was in Egypt.
Yep.
Gerar is in the south, close to the Egyptian border.
Yep.
This may be a practice that people in the south can just take what they want. So through Abraham, we see multiple times God making corrections in society, correcting something that is wrong and amiss, and he's punishing these folks throughout the region using, Abraham as his rod a little bit, or his conduit a little bit, to make right what's wrong. And so maybe this may be a God using Abraham and Sarah to get these guys to stop doing this practice.
Maybe. I have never considered that option, frankly. These are authoritarian rulers, but that's the best excuse I can come up or reason for his behavior, because he does this twice. And they set it up before they enter the land. Is it a God thing? I don't know. It's a good idea. Like I said, I'd never considered that, and I do not find that in any commentary.
But it does seem like God might have had a reason for them
Yeah.
to do it. Since
Yeah.
they did it.
God may have had a reason to do that. The first time was to make Abraham wealthy. Perhaps to change the behavior of rulers. God works in ways that are not clear to us, and you may be right.
You know, it would be interesting to find out if there is any mention throughout Jewish custom that when you wrong someone, not only do you make amends and apologize, but you give them something as a gift. Say, I wronged you, I stole your lawnmower, here's your lawnmower back, plus this to make amends.
The Hebrew law has that. If I steal a sheep, I have to replace it with two. I mean, that's where, remember in David's court, Nathan comes in and said there was a rich man who had a guest come. He took a sheep from a poor man, made a feast with it, and the rich man never returned the sheep. And and David stands up, he'll pay fourfold because he showed no pity. And Nathan, brave prophet, you're the man. So just exactly, you have to pay greater back than what you stole to make restitution.
And the thing about restitution, especially amongst property acquirers, and that's
Yep.
what the rich were this time, that's what lords and kings did at this time, is that's a sting. It's like, not only do I got to apologize to this desert wanderer, but now I got to give him all this stuff to make it right, to make amends with God. I'm having these dreams. Could be impotency. It could be restriction. We don't know.
Whatever. We
But
don't
something
know.
came and it came quick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just a thought.
Yeah. Good thought. Any thoughts out there? I'm always welcome to take comments. Okay. I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. And she really is my half-sister. That type of marriage, keeping wealth in a family, is not uncommon in Mesopotamia in the period. So he was following Mesopotamian custom to marry his half-sister. You don't have to pay much of a bride price. It all stays literally within the business. Yeah.
Dumb question, but how much inbreeding can they do before they start having issues with this? Because it seems like they're all related. I
Okay.
mean, I would think eventually.
In the
genetics
Pharaoh's
go
court,
crazy.
you usually had 3 good pharaohs, and then the imbeciles started to show up. You started having a lot of birth defects. I mean, part of the reason that King Tutankhamun died so young was genetic faults with his bones. He had a club foot, possibly hemophiliac. Not good traits for a warrior.
Yeah, like how long did it take for like the Habsburgs to start producing some odd characters?
Okay, the Habsburg jaw started showing up
Yeah.
in the 4th generation. And by the 7th generation, you get Spain. I mean, Philip of Spain.
Not the best looking character.
No. But
you know when you're betrothed to your cousin, you know what difference.
yeah, and the cousin's as ugly as he is. A very prominent jaw with the Habsburg breeding program.
I always enjoy that stuff.
Yeah, well, it's a good question. These are the kind of things you should ask when you're reading the narrative and go, "Whoa, what's
Married
going on?"
to his half-sister.
Well,
Then the other daughters are laying with their dad.
And that's why lots of race.
yeah. Okay. Just to make it worse, they're going to send Eleazar of Damascus up north to get a first cousin for Isaac.
is all business transaction anyways, right? Like, it's just business to them.
Pretty much. I
There's
mean,
no love involved, right? It's just like a business thing. Like,
There
they
is
have
no-
to do it because it's customary.
there is courtship that's formalized,
Mhm.
and the courtship is either the man who wants to be married or his father, or if they're a long way apart, a trusted servant brings gifts to the family,
Mm.
which is basically I'm buying your daughter.
Okay.
If I bring enough gifts, you will send your daughter back with me. That's the betrothal of Isaac.
Keep that in mind when you go to vertical.
Mhm.
When Austin comes
Yeah,
back.
yeah, for sure.
So,
Bring a gift.
I'll bring gifts.
Okay,
so one
no.
thing I'm
I'll buy
still
their love.
just like a little confused about.
Okay.
And it's here with Abimelech and down in Egypt.
Yep.
They're not even doing anything wrong. So I'm wondering, why should they have to reimburse Abraham and some more?
Because, okay, why does the Pharaoh have to reimburse?
Well, Abimelech especially,
Abimelech,
because
okay.
he didn't even do anything.
Well, they're taking what they want.
Yeah.
They're riding up with their troops on Abraham, wandering in the fields and saying, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. If you want to come here, give me 20 of those, give me those 2 servants. And if you try and get in our way, we're going to have a fight.
Oh.
That's what it is.
So that's what
Take
Abimelech
it.
did?
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
went- Oh, okay, so I missed that.
We-
part.
yeah,
I-
we will-
Because I was thinking of it like with the Pharaoh, because Abraham offered
To Chris.
Sarah to the Pharaoh.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Abraham did a negotiation. Yeah. I mean, he
But
was
what did
at,
the Pharaoh do wrong for him to have to?
the Pharaoh did nothing wrong from the Pharaoh's understanding. Abraham, by custom, is completely out of bounds here. You
He's a con man,
don't
this
sell
guy.
your wife.
Yeah.
He pimped her out.
Yeah.
And the Pharaoh, because you have to propitiate gods, a god has struck him. This man is representing that god. I will give him money, servants, and I will be able to have children again. I mean, it's extortion.
But hold on. We're seeing a custom apparently in the south,
Yep.
around Gerar and into Egypt, that if a king sees something he wants, and Abraham knows that if he says, this is my wife, they will kill him, and now she's single. So
Yeah.
by law, they're going to take her anyway. So by this happening to these kings in the south, I think that this is a way of breaking a pretty nasty custom that's been going on for quite some time.
Yeah, so God's trying to teach a lesson using Abraham, and Abraham's getting straight money off of it. So
He says, I trust God, and every time this happens, I come out on top. So
he's
why
rolling the
not?
dice,
Yeah.
and he's winning every time. This guy.
So I want Chris to start a podcast.
There you go.
I would not listen to it. I feel like I live it.
I'm not going to ask the question that pops to mind. Anyway, any other questions or comments? This is why this study exists, is to voice these questions and think about what is God doing here. And from the commentaries I've read, nobody in the Southern Baptist Convention has come up with your idea. I like it.
I like that too, because I keep wondering, why doesn't God punish Abraham?
That's
for
what I was
Yeah.
thinking
all
too.
the BS he's doing?
Yeah.
Because here he's
But he's really
He's
not the
lying.
troublemaker.
right
No.
out there. No, so I tend to believe what you're saying, Chris, is because God's using him to teach people things at every turn, not that Abraham's just lying because he's
Yeah.
a liar.
And really, like with him and Sarah, and they've got to be moving with their whole tribe of people,
Yeah.
all these servants and
Yeah.
Yeah.
everything. So by him saying that Sarah's his sister, which he's not lying, and he's also just trying to look out for the both of them to keep them both safe. So
Right. But if God hadn't intervened, Sarah could have had that
Mhm.
little boy by someone else, by this king Abimelech.
Okay,
I'm just-
let's get to King Abimelech's action. Who's up for 14 through 18?
Then Abimelech brought sheep and cattle and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, my land is before you, live wherever you like. To Sarah he said, I'm giving your brother 1,000 shekels of silver. This is to cover the offense against you before all who are with you. You are completely vindicated. Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female slaves, so they could have children again. For the Lord had kept all the women in Abimelech's household from conceiving because of Abraham's wife, Sarah.
He was scared of God. He was so scared of God.
Oh,
God
yeah.
scared him.
Yeah.
He feared him.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
But that end makes it sound like they were there a little longer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking,
it
right
does.
there, that because he had closed fast all the way into the household.
Yep.
Of Abimelech because of Sarah. It sounds like she
It's
could have
been a
been there
while.
like a couple years at least.
Maybe.
Or a few months.
Or yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How many sermons has it got?
Yeah, I don't think they were there more than a few months because Sarah
Because
needs to
Sarah
get
is-
pregnant
Yeah.
and have
With the
Isaac
timeline.
within a year of the destruction of Sodom. But yeah.
We might have 3 months to go
Yes,
here.
yeah. But 3 months, 2 or 3 months is likely.
Could have been 2 or 3 COVID months. You
Oh,
know,
those are really long. Yeah.
That's a whole nother.
Yeah.
Yeah. That extends the timeline.
That's right.
But the king is trying to make restitution. And 25 pounds of silver, today's mark is about $20 an ounce, so you can do your own math. But it's not given to her, it's given to her brother. You know,
And any land.
to go back to Janelle's point, if it's a business deal.
But I did find it interesting that he didn't acknowledge the husband. He said, this is for your brother.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still, he's sticking with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm reading through it the way we're doing it tonight. That's why I'm liking Chris's comment. We have a comment here. Perhaps God is also building a reputation for Abraham among the people of the land in which he sojourns. Do not disturb him.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like it too.
You know,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, don't mess with Abraham. He knocks over kings, and you mess with him, God will mess with you.
You got a sister.
Yeah, that's not, this is not theology 101, but it appears to be accurate.
And I like that comment because now, here's what's interesting. As far south as Egypt and as far north as almost to Damascus, where he annihilated those kings and
Yep.
he was vastly outnumbered.
Yep.
Abraham has a rep.
Oh, yeah. And it's a rep as a fighter and a skilled negotiator.
Right. Right.
We talked him down from 50 to 10.
Yeah. Okay, we're about to change scene. Birth of Isaac. Maria, how about 1 through 7 in chapter 21?
The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age.
Isaac means laughter. And it's not laugh over her or laugh at her. It's laughing with her,
Yeah.
with her joy.
Was this the first circumcision?
No, we've had about 350 circumcisions
Mm.
previously when Ishmael was 13 years old. That's why Muslims still circumcise at age 13. And they do not have any kind of anesthesia. Oh, fun.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Abraham did it before
This
they
is a
did.
joyous occasion. This is the miracle child. As we go forward here, I'm just going to let that one go. As we go forward, Isaac, you look at him and go, this guy doesn't do much. He doesn't fight anybody. Their property kind of shrinks down a little. What's going on? He's the miracle child. And that is his claim to fame. His father builds a big rep, and he sort of rides that through his life, and nobody messes with him. No, they try to steal his wells, and he digs new wells. He tries to avoid conflict, and you'll see that as we go forward. But he is in the line from which we get Jesus Christ. When you go back to the Matthew long genealogy, he's there. So he is also a patriarch. And he goes through some unique trials. He has a tough wife. Okay. With the miracle child, what happens to Ishmael?
Cast away.
Well, we're about to have
Not yet, but
his
getting pushed out of the vision.
Yeah. Instead of being the heir, he's the eldest son, but the heir is going to be Isaac.
He's Prince Harry.
Yeah, he's Prince Harry. Yeah,
Yeah.
Prince Harry is a great.
He's a bastard child.
Well, he's not a bastard. He is legitimate son of Abraham. Abraham has recognized him. Until the birth of Isaac, he is the heir.
Mm-hmm.
But all of a sudden, Isaac is here, and he's no longer the primary heir. And it gets worse. Okay. How about 8 through 14?
The child grew and was weaned, and Abraham held a great feast on the day Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son mocking the one Hagar the Egyptian had born to Abraham. So she said to Abraham, drive out this slave with her son, for the son of this slave will not be a co-heir with my son Isaac. This is very distressing to Abraham because of his son. But God said to Abraham, do not be distressed about the boy and about your slave. Whatever Sarah says to you, listen to her, because your offspring will be traced through Isaac. And I will also make a nation of the slave son, because he is your offspring.
Okay.
God said, listen to your wife. Did you see that in the Bible?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to be engraved on your refrigerator.
How many times does he say it?
Through 14. Yeah.
Early in the morning, Abraham got up, took bread and a water skin, put them on Hagar's shoulders, and sent her and the boy away. She left and wandered the wilderness of Beersheba.
Okay. What's the scene? What precipitates the problem?
Hagar's attitude, and Sarah for all these years kind of just biting her tongue and being, wanting to have a child of her own. And now the child has come, as Hagar scoffs or sneers or whatever, Sarah comes back with a hammer and says, you're out of here.
Well, this is the weaning day. This is about age 3.
Oh.
Could you imagine a 16-year-old boy mocking his 3-year-old brother? Such a thing has never occurred, right? Yeah. That's what went on at the party. The 16-year-olds, you pipsqueak, are you potty trained yet? I mean, those kind of jokes. And for some reason, Sarah takes offense. This son of the slave will not be co-heir with my son. You got to do something, Abraham.
Well, she is 93, isn't she?
Yeah, I'm trying to do it as best voice I can. And you don't get a flannel graph, you get bad voices. But a teenager about to enter manhood really is mocking a 3-year-old. Well, duh. But Sarah goes to Abraham, and God says, listen to what your wife says, because I'm going to reckon your lineage through that 3-year-old. not through the 16-year-old. Next morning, Abraham gets up, collects bread, gets bread, puts it in a bag, gets a water skin, puts it on Hagar's back, not on her son's back, and says, "You're gone." From what she hoped would be the pinnacle of power to be the mother of the heir, she's all of a sudden, well, she's emancipated. She's no longer a slave, but she's wandering down in this wilderness around Beersheba. Now, they show rivers here that are intermittent on the map. They're more intermittent than flowing. It is a desert country. She and her son have been kicked out of the camp with what they're carrying. Probably going from Beersheba, generally going west. They are exiled.
And he's sending them with so little.
Yeah.
He took some bread and a skin of water, so just a couple of days, 2-3 days. Basically a ration.
Yeah,
They didn't send him with a sheep and a lamb.
Silver anything.
Nothing.
yeah.
Or any protection. I mean,
Yeah.
he could have sent people with him. He had people.
Yeah, if he wanted to send them back to Egypt, he could have.
Well, he could have sent him with nothing. I mean, it says right here, and of the son of the maid, I will make a nation also. So he's kind of like, all right, well, I know they're gonna be good, so well, off you go. Here's some bread, here's some
Yeah.
water, get out of here.
Yeah, yeah. God said you'll be good, you'll be fine. Yeah. Vaya con Dios.
Yeah.
You know, right when you learn how.
So, I mean, other than kind of reassuring Abraham, I mean, what other? Because I know that the Islamic faith stems from Ishmael. What
Yeah.
other significance would giving him a nation have through Scripture?
There's no reason.
Mm.
But you will see the sons of the Ishmaelites
Mm-hmm.
showing up from this point on, coming out of Saudi Arabia and the Transjordan region. They are the Bedouins.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the Midianites, but they're the Bedouins. And Bedouins are a problem for every empire at this point. Okay, here's how God handles the problem. Let's go 15 to 21.
When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down nearby, about a bow shot away, she thought. I cannot watch the boy die. As she sat there nearby, she began to sob. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from the heaven and said to her, What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. While he was living in the desert of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from Egypt.
God hears the boy cry out. The boy is praying. He sends not to the son, not to Ishmael, but to his mother. A voice from heaven. An angel cries to her, calls her, says, why are you sitting in the bush? You're good. Your son's going to be a great nation. And then God opens her eyes and she sees a well just a little ways off to fill up that water skin. The wilderness of Paran is down in this region, further south of the Dead Sea. So instead of going east, going west the way they were, they're going to turn east and live here on the strength of Ishmael's bow. Remember, it's been prophesied that he's going to be a jackass of a man. Every man's hand will be against him, and his hand will be against every man. He's going to have 12 sons. We will get to that genealogy soon. I know, spoiler alert. But he will have 12 sons who will each have their own chiefdoms, if you will, out in the desert. He will be a desert warrior his entire life, as will his sons and his sons after him.
And he lived 137 years, so he had time to have 12 sons.
Yep. But they will be by an Egyptian woman. Mommy sent home to get an Egyptian woman to marry somebody who lives in a tent out here in Paran. Apparently, he was able to acquire a sufficient bride price. Banditry works. And this area is also where you have the tin coming up from the Egyptian mines. You have spices coming from Saudi Arabia and Yemen up through here, and then following these water courses to Gaza, where you can send perfumes, spices to the Egyptians and north to the Phoenicians. So it's on a trade route. If you're on a trade route, you have bandits. Ishmael's good with a bow. Questions? Well, this was a hard one because Abraham's told, I'll take care of your son. Trust me. And he trusts God completely. Under Practical Application 101, what does that say when God tells us clearly to do something? Just do it. Don't overthink it, just do it. Follow God's leading. But make sure, based on Scripture, that what you're hearing is from God and not bad counsel. Not easy.
And a little better if he told Hagar, like, God told me he's going to take care of you and he's going to take care of our son. And then when he sets her up, she's not like putting the kid under a bush going, no, I can't watch him die, because doesn't she have faith in God too, or no? Does she not?
She's
Oh,
from
no.
Egypt. Which God do you want her to worship?
Okay.
I mean, she was a slave in Egypt. The Pharaoh gave as a slave Hagar to Sarai, and she gave Hagar to her husband as a surrogate mother, still a slave. She's never emancipated until he puts the water and bread on her shoulder and says, go out. He should have said something to her, but it's not recorded in Scripture. He genuinely cares about the boy, and God says, I'll take care of it. And he trusts God. I mean, when we read in Hebrews, and Abraham trusted God and was accounted to him for righteousness, he's trusted him several times. So he's building up a repertoire of experience where God spoke, I'll do it. God spoke, I'll do it. God spoke, I'll do it. Until the ultimate test, which we'll get to next week.
And think about how much it emboldens Ishmael from his mom, instead of saying, well, Abraham told me we'll be just fine, to a voice from God told me you will be great. Well, now he's, oh, I'm a man. And he's puffed up. And he can fight anybody, take anybody. He's not afraid of anybody because God told my mom, she told me.
And he provided a well of water in the wilderness. Normally wells are covered when you leave them. If you dig a well, it's a lot of work. You put a rock over the top of it. You might have missed that if you don't know where to look. That's why the well will always have water in it, because nobody else can use it. For those of you that have watched the old movie Lawrence of Arabia, when the first exchange between the Beni Hassan and the Beni Noah, with Omar Sharif coming up and shooting the guy, it was a Hawattat. He can't drink out of my well. He died for it. Arabs are very controlling of their wells, and wells will play a big part in the story of Isaac.
If you're living in the desert, I think I'd be too. So.
Yeah, I mean, literally water is life.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to get a peace treaty that is not cutting covenant.
I have a question.
Sure.
So we are picturing Ishmael as being 16 years old.
Yep.
And in this culture, isn't that a man?
Yep.
But we have a boy crying under a bush.
He's a little crybaby.
Yep. He's a mama's boy.
I mean, that doesn't really fit, and it doesn't fit with what God said he was going to be and what he becomes later.
That's true.
I can only go with what the story tells.
I mean, he's had 16 years as the sheik's son.
Yeah.
So everybody's been doting on him for a long time.
And then now he is without water, he is without food.
Yeah.
Him and his mom are in the
Probably
wilderness
scared
alone,
for the
and he's
first
like,
time in his
well, all
life.
right, this is
Yeah.
where it all goes.
Yeah. Life really can go sideways on you. Okay. Are you up, Bill, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything you do. Now swear to me here before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my descendants. Show to me the country where you now reside as a foreigner, the same kindness I have shown to you. Abraham said, I swear it. Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized. But Abimelech said, I don't know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I heard about this only today. So Abraham brought sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a treaty. Abraham set apart several ewe lambs from the flock, and Abimelech asked Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs you have set apart by themselves? He replied, accept these 7 lambs from my hand as a witness that I dug this well. So that place was called Beersheba, because the 2 men swore an oath there. After the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, the eternal God, and Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time.
Okay. You could notice the difference between cutting covenant, which God and Abraham did, and a simple treaty over control of water. Abimelech and his probably mercenary commander, because he has a Cretan name, came out into the desert and said, look, God's with you. We want to make a treaty here that, you will not lie to me. I won't lie to you. We won't cheat each other, and our sons and our grandsons won't do the same. Abraham gives them some cattle and sheep, but he keeps 7 ewe lambs separate. Abimelech, not being a swift guy, goes, what are these for? Because these are basically witness ewes. You're accepting them from me so that you confirm this is my well at Beersheba. And the treaty is made. They're never going to be bad to each other again. Beersheba is noted for having 7 wells. There's one well that's, you can get pictures taken there and such at the temple, but it's an area that has lots of water if you dig down, and it has probably the neatest water system of any of the ruins that I've dragged poor Patty to. But Beersheba is critical for water. It was a place that even the Australians had to take away from the Ottoman Turks for Allenby's campaign to work in 1917. But the great charge of the cavalry with the Australians, that's where Beersheba, and they took the wells and denied the Turks any water. But they're making a covenant, basically a peace treaty, delineating, this is my well, that's your well. And they're arguing over little pieces of things, little pieces of land, little tangible assets. This isn't a forever and always we'll be brothers. Nah. This is forever and always we won't cheat each other. And these 7 ewe lambs prove this is my well. As long as you've got them in your flocks, this is mine. Let me cover one small point, and we need to end very quickly here. It says the word Philistine appears here. There are two possible reasons it's there. One, it was put in sometime to try to help you understand where they are, because this is the territory that will become the Philistines. Philistines don't show up until about 1200 BC. This is well before that. The other possibility is that Phicol, the commander of his forces, may be a mercenary from Crete or Cyprus, and that's the homeland area of the Philistines. I think it's intended to let you know in this region, where are we telling the story about? This happened down here at Beersheba in this region. If you knew your local geography at the time of you're hearing the story, that would help you know what it is. Don't be put off too much by the fact Philistine appears. All right, we are approaching 8 o'clock. We need to shut down. I put a note out a couple of minutes ago. I don't have any other questions, so I'll give you about 30 seconds, then I'm going to end the stream. We're going to collect prayer requests. See you next week, folks. We'll be shutting down in about 30 seconds. That way people know what's going on. Okay. Any prayer requests, please?
Oh, okay. Let's go this way.
Everything seems to be going okay for me. Everyone's doing well. I saw my doctor today, and there's a lot going on, so the visit was real short.